The operative word there was thought. I was putting it. I was shooting transparencies for a commercial job because I was a commercial photographer at the time. And the person doing the separations said, "You're a photographer, you know about the zone system." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "What can you do with that curve?" And I said, "Oh, well, you can adjust it, and you can change the slope and the angle and the contrast." I said, "Oh, yeah. But can you tie it in a knot?" And I went, "No." He said, "I can." I said, "Show me." So he had one, that was back, I think it was Photoshop 3 was the one that introduced curves in it.
Curves.
And he was able to pick out individual zones, lock everything out, and change just zone 5, for example, without changing zone 6 or 7. I wanted that kind of power. Man, I wanted that in the worst way. So I just got in and started playing with it, and I was getting stuff, sort of. And finally ran into a person who's no longer here, named Joe Butts. Some of you may have remembered him. He was considered one of the best portrait photographers in the country.
Yeah.
Now lives in Silver City, New Mexico. And he sent me down and said, "Dave, I know you teach this stuff," and I said, "but are you going to get upset if I tell you you're doing it all wrong?" And I thought, you know,
Not Dave.
No. There's another Dave in the room, you know, that he's talking to. And fortunately, one of the few times in life I've had the good sense to shut up, I said, "Show me." And it was mind-boggling that he was doing in 1 or 2 moves what it took me half a morning to accomplish, because he was doing the right steps in the right order, and it just worked.
Man, you guys have no idea how good you got it in digital. If you've ever been around the analog world, you know, when we created layer masks in the analog world, they were called our hands. Okay, or we would make coins and tape them to long sticks or make cardboard.
Remember doing litho masks?
Yeah.
Litho mask, right?
So I mean, it really is amazing the control that you can do, what can't have with your image. But Dave's point is, you know, garbage in, garbage out. The same holds true with good in, good out. Perfect exposures, work in your raw file the way you should, which, by the way, is not to make it pretty and perfect. Okay, is to bring as much information into Photoshop as you can, and then bring it into Photoshop. And
If any of you ever saw an Adams negative, the great god of incredible tonality and frame, if you ever saw one of his negatives, you'd want to throw up. They are flat, because every possible tone he might want to get. Adams happened to be an incredible printer, and so he was able to take that negative and get everything out of it, but he could only do that because the negative had it in it. If he had shot, when I was in school, boy, they wanted you to produce these snappy negatives, and they made really nice negatives. You couldn't print from them, you know, without losing either highlights or shadows. There was no paper known to man to do that. You had to get into contrast masking. You had to get into all kinds of things to make a print from it.
then throw color printing into it, and you got a whole.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
You have another wonderful thing. If you were into color analog, changing one color affects the others. You couldn't do real zone system work in color, because if you change the development of the film, you don't affect all of the layers evenly. And you got some really interesting stuff when you did that. That was either visually unintelligible, or at least wasn't something you could sell. In digital, man, you can pick a color and play with it.
In one area.
In one area.